Hello everyone, and welcome to today's mind-bending journey into the realms of reality, consciousness, and the possibility that what we call life is not exactly what it seems. Have you ever had a strange feeling that the world around you might not be entirely real? Maybe you've experienced a moment so bizarre, like seeing something change in front of your eyes or noticing a past event shift in your memory, that you wondered if you just witnessed a glitch in the matrix. Or perhaps you've caught yourself pondering what happens after death, and whether there's a realm in which the boundaries between existence and non-existence blur. In this video, we will dive deep into an extraordinary idea: the notion that a simulation glitch might actually prove you never truly die. If that sounds like science fiction or perhaps fantasy, fasten your seatbelts, because by the end of this discussion, you just might start questioning everything you thought you knew. To begin our story, let's clarify what we mean by simulation. The simulation theory gained popularity over the years through the work of philosopher Nick Bostrom, most notably with his essay, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" This theory proposes that an advanced civilization, maybe humans in the distant future, or even an alien species with technology far beyond our present understanding, could generate an entire simulated reality using powerful computers. The inhabitants of this simulation, us, might be completely unaware that their world isn't the base reality. Popular culture latched onto this concept in a big way. Films like The Matrix and episodes of Black Mirror bring this idea to life, showing protagonists discovering that what they believed to be the real world was actually just a programmed environment. But what's especially intriguing is the idea that if it's all a simulation, then glitches, moments when something in the simulation doesn't behave as it should, may reveal the truth hidden behind the scenes. And where does the concept of never dying fit into all of this? Well, buckle up, because that's where we move from mainstream popular science fiction into more philosophical and mind-expanding territory. Before diving into the idea of immortality, let's explore the world of glitches that people claim to see every day. There's a corner of the internet, particularly on forums like Reddit's r/glitch in the Matrix, where users share stories about what they perceive as glitches in reality. These anecdotes include déjà vu, that unsettling feeling you've experienced a situation before, sometimes in uncanny detail. Objects moving or disappearing. People swear they placed their keys on the table, only to find them in a drawer seconds later, with no explanation of how they got there. Mandela effect. Groups of people collectively misremembering certain facts, like details from logos, book titles, or movie quotes, in exactly the same way. From a purely psychological standpoint, one might say these experiences are just quirks of the human mind, memory lapses, selective attention, or coincidences that happen to strike us as meaningful. But from a simulation theory viewpoint, these oddities could be explained as glitches, small errors in the code that runs our universe. Here's where the concept becomes particularly captivating. If our reality is indeed a simulation, then perhaps these glitches are not just random mistakes, but subtle hints that the source code of our world is occasionally reconfiguring itself. Could it be that whenever something extraordinary happens, like the sudden reappearance of an item or a mass memory shift, our simulation is rewriting data, merging timelines, or reloading earlier checkpoints? So we've established that some people believe our world might be a meticulously programmed environment, peppered with occasional glitches. Now let's add another layer of complexity: quantum immortality. Quantum immortality is an idea that stems from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, originally proposed by physicist Hugh Everett. In this interpretation, every single event that can happen does happen, just in alternate branches of reality. When you flip a coin, for instance, there is one universe where the coin lands heads and another universe where it lands tails. Now let's consider what that means for life and death. The concept goes like this: in a scenario where you could die, there will also be a universe where you survive. Because your consciousness can only continue in a branch where you remain alive, you never actually experience your own death. You might come very close to it, but in some reality, you'll go on living, at least from your subjective point of view. Translated to simpler terms, you might imagine that whenever death is about to happen, reality loads a timeline in which you survive. You don't consciously skip over into a different reality with your mind fully aware, but from your personal vantage point, you never actually reach the end. That's the core puzzle. If everything that can happen does happen, and your awareness continues in whichever timeline it survives, you personally might never face your own demise, forever jumping to a branch where you keep on existing. If you then overlay simulation theory on top of this, you might say the cosmic programmer has set up a system that ensures your consciousness simply transfers to a branch where you live, effectively patching you into a new save file or timeline. Whether intentionally or as a byproduct of how the simulation is coded, you keep going. A related piece to this puzzle is the phenomenon of near-death experiences, NDEs. People who have undergone clinical death or come perilously close often report floating above their bodies, seeing a bright light, or having life-altering spiritual insights. Some argue these experiences reflect shifts in our simulation's code. The avatar, our physical form, is temporarily offline, while consciousness remains active somewhere else. The logic here goes something like this. If everything is a simulation, our bodies are analogous to characters in a massive, immersive video game. During an NDE, maybe the system is briefly suspended or disconnected, and we get a peek outside the matrix. In other words, the player, the consciousness or soul that is actually operating the avatar, gets a partial vantage point from beyond. That notion can be incredibly comforting for many people, especially those grappling with the fear of mortality. If death is merely a disconnection from the physical avatar, then the essence of who we are could be something that lives on, continuing in a different realm, timeline, or a fresh server, so to speak. While these concepts might sound futuristic or purely sci-fi, parallels can be found in ancient spiritual traditions. In Hindu and Buddhist philosophies, there is the concept of Maya, often interpreted as the illusion of the physical world. In some interpretations, our existence in the material plane is a temporary dreamlike state, while our true nature is pure consciousness. Similarly, certain esoteric schools of thought claim that life is a stage for the soul's experience, and that the ultimate reality transcends our day-to-day illusions. If you look at simulation theory from a broader lens, it starts to resemble a modern, tech-flavored reinterpretation of these older teachings. Instead of a cosmic dream, it's a computer program. Instead of illusions by the mind, we have lines of code. Yet the overarching idea remains that what appears real is not the ultimate truth, and that consciousness itself might be fundamental. In more recent times, scientists and thinkers like Robert Lanza have popularized theories such as biocentrism, arguing that consciousness is the foundation of the universe. In Lanza's perspective, the material world is dependent on the observer. If you push that notion further, you end up at a place where the observer, or consciousness, could theoretically persist beyond conventional understandings of death, because matter and reality exist within the framework of the conscious observer. To illustrate these ideas, let's weave a short narrative of hypothetical glitch encounters, showcasing how they might relate to immortality. The vanishing accident. Imagine someone who, by all accounts, should have been in a catastrophic car collision. They look away for just a moment, and by the time they look back at the road, their car is inches away from a head-on crash. Suddenly, the next moment, they're driving peacefully, heart-pounding, but with no accident taking place at all. They could have sworn there was zero chance to avoid the collision, yet here they are, unscathed. In a many worlds interpretation, maybe in one branch, the collision happened, but the consciousness of that individual is now anchored in the timeline where it didn't. In a simulated reality, it might be explained as the code executing a correction or reloading from a quick save point. The healing wound. A person claims that a cut on their hand, which was quite severe the night before, has mysteriously healed by morning. While biological healing does happen, this particular wound seems to have closed up too quickly. They might guess that their body's avatar data got updated unexpectedly, erasing the damage. Memory overlap. Two siblings insist they recall a childhood event, the family dog being white and named Snowball, while the parents stare at them in confusion, stating that they never owned a white dog. Searching for photographic evidence reveals no sign of the dog, but the siblings have identical recollections, A glitch? A memory merge from a parallel reality? Or just the human brain playing a trick? All these scenarios, while obviously anecdotal and subject to natural explanations, illustrate how some people approach everyday coincidences or near accidents as potential evidence that we live in a reality that is not entirely stable, or that is being managed from behind the scenes. At this point, a skeptic might ask, if we truly live in a simulation that occasionally glitches, or if quantum immortality keeps us skipping from timeline to timeline, why don't we see more obvious signs? That's a fair question. Proponents of simulation theory and quantum immortality often argue that these phenomena need not be obvious to everyone. After all, the hypothetical advanced civilization running the simulation presumably wants a stable, consistent environment. Glitches would likely be minimal or subtle to avoid waking up the characters to the nature of their reality. And for quantum immortality, each person might have a deeply personal experience. Perhaps in timelines where they die, they simply cease to be from that branch's perspective, while from their viewpoint, they continue in a timeline where they survived. It's not exactly dinner conversation that you shifted into a timeline where you didn't die. Instead, to you, it just feels like you avoided a close call. Meanwhile, in another branch, the reality is starkly different. Moreover, human memory is famously unreliable. We fill in gaps, reinterpret events, and reconstruct experiences, so it's always possible that many so-called glitches just never get reported, or are brushed aside as daydreams and illusions. This selective filtering allows the simulation, if it exists, to go mostly undetected. Now let's address the central hook, the promise or suggestion that you never truly die. This phrase can resonate on multiple levels. Philosophical comfort. The fear of death is universal. If we have reason to believe that our consciousness endures, through simulation resets, quantum leaps, or a spiritual continuity, then we might find solace in the idea that death is not an absolute end. Existential curiosity. What if you are indeed the center of your own branching multiverse, constantly existing in whichever branch you remain alive? That might give life an extra sense of mystery. Narrative drive. The storyline of eternally existing in some form has fueled myths, legends, and spiritual beliefs for millennia. Now it's just repackaged in scientific and technological language. Of course, it's important to note that this concept is not mainstream science in the sense of having definitive experimental proof. Rather, it is a bold blend of philosophical reasoning, theoretical physics ideas, and interpretive leaps that push conventional boundaries. Yet, for those intrigued by the interplay between consciousness and the fabric of reality, it adds a thought-provoking dimension to everyday life. The next time you avoid a disaster by a hair's breadth, or notice something you can't logically explain, you might pause and think, is my existence being recalibrated in some cosmic or programmed way? Interestingly, many holistic and spiritual traditions don't use the language of simulations or code, but they do suggest that the physical world is not the ultimate reality. Whether in the Upanishads of Hinduism, where the self, Atman, transcends bodily existence, or in certain strands of Buddhist thought emphasizing the illusory nature of material phenomena, Maya, the gist is that we, as conscious entities, partake in a grander form of existence. If you fuse that worldview with the more modern scientific or pseudo-scientific jargon, simulation, quantum fields, multi-world branching, you essentially arrive at the same point. You are more than your body, and what appears to be the end might simply be a transition or a shift. This has a broad appeal. It's neither exclusively religious nor strictly scientific, allowing it to capture imaginations across cultural and intellectual divides. For people who yearn for a cosmology that embraces technology, possibility, and a sense of cosmic wonder, the idea that reality is simulated and consciousness never fully winks out of existence can be intoxicatingly fascinating. Another way to visualize this concept is to compare it to video games. Imagine you're playing an open-world role-playing game, guiding your character through countless quests. If your character dies, you might simply load a previous save state. From the character's point of view, if it somehow had consciousness, it just leaps back to a moment before disaster. Its continuity flows on in that new timeline, and the old timeline, Where it perished is left behind, effectively orphaned. Now, if we scale up that analogy, the argument would be that your real consciousness is akin to the player, while your body is the character. The simulation engine can seamlessly keep reloading your experience into whichever branch keeps you alive. Sure, it's speculative, but it's a captivating way to reconcile near-miss accidents, improbable survivals, and even those bizarre glitch events that defy explanation. Despite how enticing these ideas might be, it's essential to keep a balanced perspective. After all, the notion of never dying or living in a simulation can become a comforting fantasy that sidesteps the reality of loss, grief, and the finality of physical death as we usually understand it. On the other hand, an open mind can be a powerful thing, especially when it comes to exploring the boundaries of science and metaphysics. Humans have often evolved our understanding of the cosmos by wrestling with seemingly wild hypotheses. Remember, quantum mechanics itself once seemed like pure wizardry. And so we walk a line, acknowledging that we might have limited or anecdotal evidence for simulation glitches and quantum immortality, but also recognizing that these concepts spark deep questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and the ultimate meaning of life. Let's recap what we've discussed and keep the narrative thread coherent. Simulation theory. Our reality could be a sophisticated computer program run by advanced beings, or future humans. This idea was popularized by philosophers like Nick Bostrom and found a place in pop culture through movies like The Matrix. Glitches. Everyday anomalies, déjà vu, items mysteriously moving, Mandela effects, could be code errors in this simulation. Though many can be explained by psychology or coincidence, some interpret them as evidence of a digital unreality. Quantum immortality. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests every possible outcome happens in some branch of reality. From your perspective, you only ever experience the branches where you survive. This idea merges with simulation concepts to propose that you may never experience your own death, because the simulation, or the cosmic code, shifts you to a timeline of continued life. Near-death experiences. These may be moments where the avatar is briefly disconnected, granting glimpses of a state beyond the simulated world. Alternatively, they might reinforce spiritual or holistic beliefs that the physical body is just one layer of existence. Spiritual parallels. Ancient philosophies talk about the illusory nature of the physical world. Modern physics and simulation theories sometimes appear to echo these age-old ideas, just in new forms. Personal significance. While not universally accepted, these hypotheses can offer comfort, fueling a sense of wonder and possibility. They encourage us to question the nature of reality and to remain open to mysteries that challenge our usual way of thinking. So does any of this prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you never die? Certainly the word prove is tricky. In strict scientific terms, no, we do not have definitive proof. Most of what we've discussed are interpretations, thought experiments, and personal testimonies. Yet the concept of proof can be a moving target, especially if we ourselves are part of the environment we're trying to analyze. Think about it. A simulation is designed for its inhabitants not to know it's a simulation. If we ever conclusively found it out, that would arguably be the biggest glitch of all. And quantum immortality, if it's real, is something you only discover by continuing to exist indefinitely, which makes it tricky to present as evidence to anyone else who might have parted ways in other branches. Despite these uncertainties, the conversation itself is valuable. It stretches our minds, encourages us to reflect on deeper questions of existence, and unites science, philosophy, and spirituality in a single cosmic puzzle. As we wind down this whirlwind exploration, let's consider the following. Perhaps the true power of ideas like simulation glitches and quantum immortality isn't in proving anything conclusively, but in inspiring us to probe the boundaries of our reality. We inhabit a universe or multiverse that is astoundingly complex, filled with quantum wonder, cosmic vastness, and the intangible qualities of consciousness. In the end, whether we live in a simulation or not, whether we skip from one timeline to another, or whether we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience, These are perspectives that can motivate us to live more fully, to question the ordinary, and to keep our curiosity alive. After all, if life is some kind of game or cosmic drama, wouldn't we want to explore every facet of it as passionately as possible? So the next time you notice something inexplicably strange, maybe your phone reappears somewhere you're sure you never placed it, or you have a déjà vu so vivid it stops you in your tracks, take a moment to wonder, could it be a glitch? Could you, in that moment, be dancing on the edge of a bigger cosmic truth that's just out of reach? And if one day you face a harrowing brush with death and find yourself miraculously unscathed, maybe, just maybe, you'll recall the intriguing notion that your consciousness cannot fully die. Because in the labyrinthine code of reality, there's always another branch, another timeline, another flicker of existence for you to inhabit. Thank you for joining me on this mind-expanding journey. If you found value in today's exploration of simulation theory, quantum immortality, and the strange phenomena that blur the line between science, philosophy, and spirituality, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content like this. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and remember, the truth is often stranger than we can imagine. Whether or not we truly cheat death through cosmic loopholes, there's something deeply awe-inspiring about the fact that, within this vast tapestry of existence, our consciousness has the capacity to wonder, explore, and dream of worlds beyond. In a universe as infinite and mysterious as ours, even if it's a simulation, the possibilities are endless. And in that sense, perhaps we never truly die after all.